I absolutely not really love women. I have nothing against women. I believe women are the most precious things on the planet. They create life. They should be protected. They should be provided for. I would never let a woman pay for a bill. I would never let a woman, if someone touched any of my women, I would stand up against 10 men by myself and risk my life to protect her. I believe that women are beautiful creatures. I just don't think that they're as emotionally calm as men in stressful situations. I don't think they can fight like a man can. And for the same reason, I would never drop my children in an all-male nursery. I think that's strange and weird. I would only drop them in an all-female nursery. Women do certain things and men do certain things. And we live in a world now where the whole idea of the roles has been conflated to the fact where if I come along and say women are better with children and men are better at fighting, that I'm somehow, when it's clearly true. There's nothing wrong with stating the facts. It's the truth.
So there's Andrew Tate in full flow, talking there about how he honours women in a certain way. And a lot of what he was saying there I would agree with, not necessarily all of it. He talks about my women rather than my woman, which is slightly concerning. But Andrew Tate more generally, he offers his vision of masculinity, and it generally involves hard work, making lots of money, fast cars, fitness, mental toughness, being chivalrous in a certain way. He's ridiculously opinionated about all sorts of trivial issues. It can be quite entertaining to watch. But he sees women as sex objects, and he sees his relationship with the women as a game in order to manipulate them for his own ends. And he's also a crook. He talks about the way that he would operate illegal businesses and be dishonest in his business dealings. Now, Andrew Tate is a massive internet celebrity. He's currently facing criminal charges in Romania. Now, what are those criminal charges all about? Well, let's hear from the man himself.
I was all about trying to get paid. Like I used sex as a tool to make women love me so they'd obey me and live in my house and make me money. That's what I wanted. So I was a pimp in that sense. Like I was not trying to have sex with women. I was trying to get women to obey me. And I realized that's easier if they like to have sex with me. If they don't like having sex with me, it's pretty hard to make them listen to me. So yeah, on corporatate.com, I have my PhD program, and that is PhD is a pimp and hose degree that I'm
clever.
And that teaches basically how I got girls, how I met girls, how I got girls to like me, how I got girls to fall in love with me to work on webcam for me. That's what I did. That was my MO, was find girls, make them love me, and make them work for me.
So as a liar, a pimp, he deceives and uses women. His idea of sexual morality couldn't be more different than mine. I would say sex within living, committed, exclusive marriage. His view is the opposite, that these girls should have sex with him just as a means to an end and then have sort of sexual interactions with other men online. Now, these criminal charges he's facing, to be honest, it doesn't really make much difference to me whether he's convicted or not. I know enough about him that I am convinced he's a bad character. So whether he's found guilty in court or not doesn't really matter to me. Now, feminists love Andrew Tate because they can use him to say, here are your options. You're either a feminist or you're on your way to becoming Andrew Tate. They're the two sides of the argument. Take your pick. Now, so Andrew Tate serves a purpose for feminists in the same way that the Westboro Baptist Church used to serve a purpose for the LGBT movement. Remember the Westboro Baptist Church? It wasn't really a church, just a handful of people in America who were gratuitously offensive and hostile towards gay people. And I think they spent all their time doing BBC interviews and having newspapers come in and doing reports on them. Because the LGBT activists love them, because they can say, look, here are options. You can be like us, or you can be like these people. So Andrew Tate serves a similar purpose. So enter Humza Yousaf. Now, Humza Yousaf has written an article in The Guardian recently. Now, why did he write an article in The Guardian about feminism and Andrew Tate? Was it because he'd got some unique perspectives to add to the public discussion? No. No, Humza Yousaf thought, I'll write the thing in The Guardian, I'll say exactly what the people who read The Guardian want to hear, and then they'll like me. That was his mission. And he probably accomplished that mission. So let's see what Humza Yousaf had to say. He said, misogynists like Andrew Tate hold sway over thousands of men and boys. Yeah, well, he is popular with a lot of people. Right, is Andrew Tate a misogynist? Does he hate women? Well, he certainly exploits them. But on the other hand, he also exploits men. Just listen to this.
When I talk about what women don't find, that women don't know what men find attractive, earlier on in this podcast, everything I said, the webcam company I was running proved that perfectly. So I'm trying to teach these women, and the women kept f***ing it up. So I said to them, it's like, you know what, f*** it. I'm taking over. So what I did is I unplugged their keyboards. and plugged a new one in from me behind the screen. So the chicks would sit there and hit a keyboard that wasn't plugged in. And me and my brother, and eventually some staff I trained, would do all the talking. The girls were just famoosers, just laughing and doing this, the out. And they were talking to ice cold hustlers. We were taking their money, all of it. And they'd come and say, well, what kind of, bro, all of it. We were fucking milking them dry. Women haven't got a clue how to famoose a dude. They don't have, because they rely on their looks. They don't have any of the intellect. They have no game, nothing. I had these guys selling their houses, life savings, loans, all of it to me. Give me it all. So like, and it's basic shit, right? You'd have a guy.
Feel bad or no?
No, to give a solitary fuck.
So does he hate men as well? I suggest not, because he is one. He just exploits everyone. He's a selfish, heartless, and greedy person. But of course, with the identity politics mindset, you don't think like that. You don't think of good people and bad people. You've got to think in terms of groups. He's a man. Some of the people he's exploiting are women, so therefore he hates women. This is a gender-based issue. If he also exploits men, well, we're not interested in that because that doesn't fit in with the narrative. Everything's going to be turned into a group identity conflict issue. So Humza Yousaf talks about Andrew Tate's appeal. Why does he appeal so much? Part of it, I think, is that he contrasts with the general societal glorification of weakness and dependence, where the message is often to be a man, well, that involves being more like a woman. If you can take on more characteristics like a woman, then that is more admirable. It's based on like Nicola Sturgeon's and well, a lot of other people's female supremacist mindset. Women are better than men. So if men can just try and become more like women, then the world will be a much better place. So what does Humza say? Humza says, male leaders like me must address this issue. So how's he going to address it? What's his vision of masculinity he's offering to young males in this country? Well, what he's offering is continuity Sturgeon, female supremacism. You know, women are really better than men. Men are the problem. And what that creates is a backlash. And part of that backlash is the likes of Andrew Tate. So how can Andrew Tate's modus operandi work? So he gets these women, enters into a sexual relationship with them insincerely, and then uses that bond to lure them, force them, whatever, into the sex industry, effectively. Now that's only possible with very decayed moral standards. If Andrew Tate shared the moral standards of traditional religious teachings, for example, he wouldn't do that. He would think that's wrong. If the girls that he seduces also had those same moral standards, he wouldn't have a chance. They would just refuse. They'd say, no, sex is for marriage, sex is for committed long-term relationships, I'm not interested in this. And Andrew Tate wouldn't be able to function like that. So who killed off this traditional sexual morality and therefore is enabling Andrew Tate to function like this? Well, who killed off traditional sexual morality? Well, feminists, progressives, they're the ones who've devalued sex, just turned it into a leisure activity like any other. Right, there's some Yousaf trying to restore traditional sexual morality? No. He's a member of the SNP. Does the SNP try and restore traditional sexual morality? Have you seen their sex education resources? I think we can say the answer to that is a resounding no. Right, let's allow Humza to continue. The actions of men cause such pain and suffering. What about women? Do the actions of women not cause pain and suffering as well? They do. They do. So Humza Yousaf, the focus isn't on the people who cause pain and the people who suffer. No, you can't focus on individuals. You've got to turn it into groups. It's the group men cause pain and suffering. The group women do the suffering. Because men are the oppressor group, women are the oppressed group. So that's what we need to focus on. Doesn't matter what individuals do, it's the groups that count. So Humza continues, men have made our communities feel far too unsafe for far too many women. And what, men? All men? I mean, most police officers are men. Do they make communities feel unsafe? I was driving through a city at night once and I saw a couple and the man was really having a go at the woman. He was, I don't know, he was very angry and he seemed to be being quite aggressive to her. He wasn't hitting her, but he seemed to be shouting at her. She seemed to be cowering away from him a bit. So I stopped my car and got out. I went over and I said to the woman, I said, is everything okay? She said, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. I said, are you sure? She said, yeah, it's fine. Okay, so I went off and the two, I said, they then sort of held hands and walked along the road chatting, and I watched them walk away. It all seemed fine. So I, as a man, was I making the community feel less safe? Humza says I am, because men, that's what men do. They make communities feel less safe. And there's also such a thing as violent women, by the way, Humza. It's hardly unknown for women to be violent to other women and to men as well. Right, so on he goes. Women and girls the world over are suffering due to the actions of men. Everything's through the gender lens. This just reminded me of the Sheku Bayo incident. This was the man high on drugs who attacked a police officer in Kirkcaldy in 2015, and then he died while being restrained by police while he was trying to attack the police. Now, for me, that's the story. I've just told you the story. But for someone like Humza Yousaf or other people into identity politics or social justice, as they call it, no, they don't. That's not the story. For them, the story is white police officers are involved and the black man dies. So this is a race issue. So when Humza Yousaf looks at these things, it's a gender issue. That's what you have to focus on. Not the individuals, the groups. Right, Humza continues, barely a week goes by without a distressing report in the newspapers or on our television screens about a woman being the victim of harassment, stalking, abuse, violence, rape or murder. Okay. How about violence and murder? Well, murder in particular. Here are the statistics for Scotland from a recent year. So the grey line at the top is the total. The lighter blue line is the male victims of murder, and the dark blue line at the bottom, far lower, are the female victims of murder. In other words, far more men are murdered in Scotland than women. If you just watch the media, you'd think virtually no men get murdered. You'd think it's all women, and, well, just maybe occasionally a man, but basically the problem with murder is just women getting murdered all over the place, left, right and centre. That's the real issue. A total contradiction of the facts. Right, Humza goes on. The situation facing women and girls across the world terrifies me. We see abortion rights under attack here in Scotland, as well as across the world, with the decision to reverse Roe versus Wade in the US and attacks on girls' rights to education in Afghanistan. So Humza is terrified at the prospect that the killing of the unborn in the womb is going to stop. He finds that terrifying. He says abortion rights are under attack in Scotland. I mean, are they? Are they? I mean, not in the Scottish Parliament, they're not. You might have John Mason occasionally coming out with a pro-life line, but that's hardly abortion rights under attack, is it? When the Scottish Family Party get people elected into the Scottish Parliament, maybe he'll be a bit more justified saying abortion rights are under attack, because they certainly will be. But at the moment, I'm not quite sure what he's talking about. Then Afghanistan? What's he bringing Afghanistan in? I mean, the Taliban. Well, I can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to say, Andrew Tate, the Taliban, pro-lifers, they're all part of the same thing, really. It's the same movement. They're all as dangerous as each other. And anyone who's not thinking for themselves at all might be persuaded by that. Right, on goes Humza. Men cannot be passive bystanders when it is our actions that are causing such pain, suffering and misery. We have to take a stand. It's simply not good enough to say not all men and wash our hands of the problem we have collectively created. Every single man can and should play his role in making change. Right, our actions that are causing such pain. Okay, right, I object. I don't think my actions are causing pain of the type he's talked about, harassing, abusing, raping, whatever, women. No, it's not me. It's not me. So Humza, don't sort of apologise for me, because I'm a man, for something that I'm not involved in. And Humza, I suspect you're not involved in it either. I mean, what you're saying is just not true. It says it's simply not good enough to say not all men. Really? Okay, Humza, how about the next time there's a Muslim terrorist attack? How about if someone to say, oh, look, this is what Muslims are doing. Muslims are doing this. Again, Muslims need to get their act together. All Muslims are responsible for this. Muslims need to sort out the problem that they've created. Humza would say, well, not all Muslims approve of it. But someone could reply and say, you can't say not all Muslims. It's not good enough to say not all Muslims. I mean, has Humza Yousaf even begun to think about this? Has even begun to think it through? It seems not. But, well, I know he's writing for The Guardian, but even so, he should think about what he's writing. He says, but it's not enough to pontificate and lecture. A pious approach to tackling toxic masculinity will not solve this issue. Not enough to pontificate and lecture. That's exactly what he's doing in this article. Pious, I take it by that he means like taking a superior tone, but that's exactly what he does as well. Because when Humza Yousaf attacks men, look at what men do. He's not talking about himself. He's basically saying, I'm on the higher plane. I'm one of the enlightened men. And what I'm talking about is those unenlightened men that I've risen above, and he's denigrating them. So it's not humility. It's superiority or piousness, as he might like to call it. Right, Humza says, we must demonstrate what a positive male identity looks like to young boys and to other men. So Humza Yousaf is presenting the vision of being a first minister and being a feminist who denigrates men and masculinity. That's his idea of presenting a positive male identity. To be honest, I'm not sure many people are going to be inspired by that. And Humza says, there's not a grown man in the country today who has not been guilty of problematic behaviour, actions or words towards women in some form. Well, I think he's probably right. And I think every grown man will also have been guilty of those things towards men. Every woman will have been guilty of those things towards men. And every woman will have been guilty of some of those things towards women as well. But as far as Humza is concerned, men, it's like an original sin. For men, you're automatically guilty because you're a man. It's just the way it is. Unless you're a feminist man like him. But men in general, the unenlightened men, yeah, they're all as bad as each other. We must ask men to reflect, to be honest, and be willing to make the necessary changes in their attitudes. Right, to be honest, Humza, I don't think I need to make any changes to my attitudes in this area. And then it says, as First Minister, I want Scotland also to lead on tackling one of the root causes of gender-based abuse, toxic masculinity. Right, has Humza got anything good to say about men? Anything at all? In this whole article, nothing. Just men are a problem to be solved. Men need to change. Any positive vision? Nothing whatsoever. So take your pick, Humza Yousaf or Andrew Tate? Well, obviously, I would say neither. What can we take from Andrew Tate? Well, some positive messages, but ambition, working hard, keeping fit, being chivalrous in a sense, being strong. Okay, great. From Humza Yousaf, what I can take as his message to men is, don't harass, stalk, abuse, be violent towards rape or murder women. That's the sum total of Humza Yousaf's vision of masculinity. To be honest, I already knew that. I already knew that. I think basically virtually every man already knows that as well. And is that really all you've got to offer? It's not very inspiring. Now, what would I add to Andrew Tate and Humza Yousaf's contributions? I would say to young men, boys, orient your relationships towards marriage, towards family life, towards becoming a husband, a dad, you know, but a provider as well. Often that's what a wife will want. They'll want a traditional husband figure. Say, protect, respect, honour women. That's your special duty. I think that's a very positive message as well. I mean, Humza Yousaf sounds as though he's getting quite close to saying men have got a special duty to protect women. You better be careful saying that, because a lot of feminists would go berserk if they thought that was what he was saying, because they're saying everything has to be absolutely equal, no special responsibilities of men to care or look after women. For feminists as well, the feminists have been wanting sexual liberation for decades, but when it's now resulting in women getting sexually exploited by selfish men, a lot of feminists are starting to say, well, maybe these traditional values have something going for them after all. And they certainly have. So, Humza, is he going to inspire a generation of boys with his lecture on toxic masculinity? No. A lot of boys already are feeling alienated, excluded, neglected, denigrated in school in particular, and his message is hardly going to help. I just wish we could focus more on universal values. Instead of seeing everything through the battle of the sexes mind, let's look at what's good and bad. Where there's a problem, where there's bad behaviour, let's focus on that thing specifically, rather than the gender of the people involved in it. Now, as far as Humza is concerned, mission is accomplished. He's written what the Guardian readers wanted to read, and so they'll like him a bit more, and that will be absolutely fine. In terms of electoral success, what he said will appeal to progressive voters, and there's quite a lot of them, so his mission's accomplished. Was he really trying to speak to men and boys? Not really. Not really. He's speaking to Guardian voters and Guardian readers and progressive voters. Men and boys, he hasn't really got anything to say, but he wasn't really talking to them in any case. Because to men and boys, he had nothing whatsoever positive to say. So do join the Scottish Family Party. Do subscribe to our channel as well. And thanks for watching.